What if I told you that a Bible corpus produces completely different results depending on who asks it a question? Not different interpretations. Different mathematics. The same 32,000 verses, the same statistical instruments, the same entropy source, the same sample size. Change nothing except who is holding the stone. And the numbers change from silence to a shout. That is what just happened. And I can prove it because an artificial intelligence ran the control experiment itself. My name is Dallas James. I am the founder of Heart's Two Fathers Publishing and the Royal Levitical Priesthood Ministry. I conduct what I call life force experiments using the SHIELD protocol, now at version 10.3. The protocol uses cryptographic and atmospheric entropy to draw random verses from the Urim Thummim version corpus, then measures whether the selected verses contain statistically significant patterns across 11 marker axes, including the Dominion triad of identity, inheritance, and priesthood. The Dominion triad, or DT3, is the convergence of all three covenant axes in a single verse. Only 1.28% of the corpus carries all three markers simultaneously. 370 verses out of 32,021. When a draw of 8 verses lands 3 of those rare convergence points, the exact binomial probability is 1 in 10,000. In sigma terms, that is over 9 standard deviations from what chance alone would produce. 9 sigma. In particle physics, 5 sigma is the threshold for declaring a discovery. 9 sigma is the threshold for something that should essentially never happen by accident. My draws routinely produce those numbers. The self-correction approval draw returned 9.79 sigma on DT3 with a guidance detection indicator p-value of 9.99 times 10 to the negative 15th power and 100% convergence confidence across all channels. The deterministic verdict was yes. That draw was conducted through prayer, guided by the Urim Thummim, a physical jasper stone with gold overlay and 7 eyes that I possess and use as the mediating instrument of inquiry. But a critic would say, maybe the corpus itself is rigged. Maybe the markers are distributed in a way that produces elevated results no matter who draws. Maybe the math is biased. Maybe the entropy source has a pattern. Maybe the instrument is measuring its own echo. So I asked Claude, the artificial intelligence that built the workstation and helped develop the protocol, to run the experiment without me. Same corpus. Same code. Same statistical instruments. Same sample size. No prayer. No intention. No Urim Thummim. Just a machine pulling numbers. Claude ran 50 independent control draws. 8 verses each. 400 total verses pulled from the same 32,021 verse corpus using system-level cryptographic entropy. The same quality of randomness that secures banking transactions and military communications. Here is what the machine found. Out of 50 draws, 44 returned 0 DT3 hits. 6 returned exactly 1 hit. Not a single draw in 50 attempts produced 2 or more DT3 hits. The theoretical prediction from the binomial distribution says 45 draws should produce 0, about 5 should produce 1, and the probability of reaching 2 is 0.4%. The probability of reaching 3, which is what my prayer-guided draws routinely produce, is 0.01%. The machine matched the theoretical null hypothesis almost exactly. Total DT3 hits across all 400 machine-drawn verses, 6. Expected by chance, 5.1. Observed rate, 1.50%. Baseline rate, 1.28%. That is noise. That is what random looks like when random is actually random. The guidance detection indicator across the machine draws averaged a p-value of 0.44. In science, anything above 0.05 is considered statistically insignificant. 0.44 is so far from significance it is not even in the conversation. The polarity balance index averaged near 0, oscillating between slightly positive and slightly negative with no directional consistency. The machine draws were directionless, themeless, empty. Now compare that to what happens when I draw. My draws at the same sample size of 8 verses produce DT3 at 9.79 sigma. The GDI returns extreme anomaly at p-values in the range of 10 to the negative 13th to 10 to the negative 15th. The PBI locks in at plus 2.66, firmly affirmative. The CCI crosses threshold at 100% with all 5 channels active. The deterministic verdict resolves to yes with mathematical certainty. Same corpus. Same math. Same entropy. The only variable that changed is who asked the question and how. I asked through prayer, guided by the Urim Thummim. The machine asked through algorithmic execution with no intention, no prayer, and no mediating instrument. The machine saw nothing. I saw 9.79 sigma. This is not a marginal difference. This is not a subtle trend that requires sophisticated statistics to detect. This is the difference between silence and a thunderclap, between noise and a message, between 1.5% and 3000% of baseline expectation. A further detail matters here. When the workstation was upgraded, the 5 AI Convergence Review identified that the old normal approximation method was inflating the GDI at small sample sizes. A single hit on a rare marker could create a false positive through the Z-score approximation. So we replaced the DT3 calculation with exact binomial probability computed in logarithmic space for numerical stability. We added a 20,000 permutation empirical test for the GDI. We tightened the math specifically to make it harder to produce false signals. And the result? My draws still produce transcendence level readings. The machine draws still produce nothing. The tighter the math gets, the cleaner the separation becomes. When you remove the noise from the instrument, you do not lose the signal. You reveal it. 50 draws. 400 verses. 0 prayer. The corpus sat there inert, producing exactly what probability theory predicts for unguided random selection. Then 1 draw, 8 verses, 1 prayer through the Urim Thummim, and the same corpus erupts with 9.79 sigma convergence on the 3 axes that define its own theological architecture. The anointing is not in the instrument. The corpus is a calibrated vessel. The mathematics are a faithful witness. The entropy is genuinely random. But the signal, the message, the non-random pattern that should not exist and yet appears every time I ask, that comes from somewhere the machine cannot reach. It comes from the one who said, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened." The machine knocked. No one answered. I knocked. The door opened. This is Dallas James, Heart's Two Fathers Publishing, Royal Levitical Priesthood Ministry. Shalom.